All right. So what are we all here for? We're here to talk about financing your Stockton education. I know a few questions are going to come up during this presentation. Please feel free to put them into the Q&A feature of this Zoom. We really want to reserve the chat for any links that we're going to share with you or anything like that. And some questions can get lost in there. It's easy if there's a bunch. So the Q&A will really help us keep track of your questions. We do have a staff member that's going to answer some of them, and then I will also answer some live if we feel that any questions should be answered live. That would be better answered that way. So let us get started. My name is Maria Elena Dottoli. I'm Assistant Director of Financial Aid here at Stockton. I'm also a two-time Stockton alum. Graduated in 2018 with my bachelor's degree, and then again in 2021 with my master's degree. So what exactly are we talking about in this presentation? I know I have a few different audiences here. So I have some students who are looking, families whose students are looking to come in for fall of 24, and then some students who are looking to come into Stockton later on at a different time. So I'm going to be covering a lot just because there's several different audiences within this group. So I'm going to mainly go over the entire process. All right, so that includes understanding the sources and the types of financial aid, applying for aid, and then determining costs, understanding your aid offer, and then filling that gap. Okay. Of course, for our current high school seniors, the FAFSA has changed. Okay, I'm going to go over what those changes mean for us, updates to the process, and all of that soon. All right. So first, understanding the sources and types of financial aid. So the sources of financial aid is where your aid comes from. These include the federal and state governments, the university, and then any private entities. And these sources provide two different types of aid. They provide gift aid as well as self-help aid. So gift aid, our favorite kind, it's free money, grants and scholarships, free money that does not have to be paid back. And then there's self-help aid. This includes loan options, which would be borrowed money that doesn't have to be paid, that has to be paid back with interest, and then employment opportunities, so working and earning a paycheck. Okay, just to dive a little bit deeper into what sources give what types of aid. So the federal government's pretty well-rounded. They offer the federal Pell Grant, so they offer grants, work study opportunities, and then federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans as well. The state government, they typically mostly offer grants. They do have a few other aid programs separate that are more private. But they offer the Tuition Aid Grant, the Garden State Guarantee, Educational Opportunity Fund, and New Jersey Stars 1 and 2. Stockton, we offer grants and scholarships. So the main grant we're going to be talking about today is the Stockton Promise. But we do also offer other institutional grants and then scholarships based on merit and extracurricular achievement. And then private aid. So private aid would be private scholarships, private loans. Those would be with banks, credit unions, people like that. Anybody really who's either offering you a scholarship or lending you money. All right, so Stockton scholarships. At Stockton, we reward academic success. Our first year scholarships are based on both academic and extracurricular achievement. So in order to determine your academic achievement, of course, we're going to review your high school transcript. Extracurricular, we're going to look at different work opportunities that you've been a part of, volunteerism, community engagement, family responsibilities, any clubs, organizations that you've been involved in, art, music, sports, all of those different experiences that are meaningful to you. They're also meaningful to us, and we know that they help shape who you are as a student and as a person, and we want to take those into consideration. So those are some of the things that we look at as far as evaluating scholarship eligibility. How to apply for these scholarships. Once you apply to Stockton through the common application, you'll just complete the activity section. And then you'll have applied for scholarships as well. We'll evaluate you that way. And then if you are applying with the Stockton application, if you're a transfer student, you'll complete the activity and employment sections within that, and that's how we'll determine your eligibility. And to learn more, you can visit stockton.edu/scholarships. Okay, so the Stockton Promise I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go a little bit more into detail of it. The Stockton Promise covers 100% of the gap between federal, state, and institutional financial aid. so grants and scholarships, and the cost of tuition and fees for qualifying students. So what exactly does this do? It'll take any grants and scholarships that you have, if you do. If not, then it would just cover everything if you meet the criteria. And it would subtract those from the cost of your tuition and fees. And then whatever that gap is, the Stockton Promise would cover. So like I said, if you don't have grants and scholarships, but you are eligible for the Stockton Promise, that it would cover the entire thing. The Stockton Promise is available to New Jersey residents with 0 to 59 earned credits, whose family adjusted gross income is between 0 and 65,000. And the only way to apply for it is to either file the FAFSA or the New Jersey Alternative Application for New Jersey Dreamers. And then additional eligibility criteria can also be found at stockton.edu/promise. That's a really great program though that we love, that helps our students. The next program I do want to talk about is the Garden State Guarantee. This is very similar to the Stockton Promise. This is a state program, however, and there are a few different tiers. So the first tier of the Garden State Guarantee is very similar to the Stockton Promise. And then there are 2 additional layers to it as well. But again, it is a last dollar program created to assist New Jersey residents in affording the cost of their education. Depending on a student's eligibility, the Garden State Guarantee can cover all or a portion of the gap between a student's federal, state, institutional, and private grants and scholarships and the cost of their tuition and fees. Okay, so that tier 1 would be the $0 net price, very similar to the Stockton Promise. Tier 2 would be a net price of no more than $7,500 in tuition and fees. And then tier 3 would be a $10,000 net price of tuition and fees. And then additional eligibility criteria is also found at stockton.edu/GSG. To qualify, students have to be New Jersey residents with 60 to 128 earned credits, whose family adjusted gross income is between specific amounts. So for tier 1, it would be 0 and 65,000 to have that $0 net price. For the net price of $7,500, it would be between $65,001 and $80,000. And then for that $10,000 net price, the AGI would have to be between $80,001 and $100,000. And then the same thing, you apply each year by doing the FAFSA or the New Jersey Alternative Application if you're a New Jersey Dreamer. Okay, one other program I did want to highlight specifically is the New Jersey Educational Opportunity Fund. We also refer to it as EOF. There are many acronyms in financial aid, which I'm sure you'll hear me discuss later. But EOF ensures meaningful access to higher education to those from backgrounds of economic and educational disadvantage. EOF students receive counseling, financial, and other support services to ensure success at Stockton. Okay, so what are some of the benefits of EOF? Tuition and fees are covered. Free college credits at the Interactive Summer Academy that we have. Students actually come and live on campus. So that's something super unique. Free calculator rentals. They go on field trips and attend different conferences and networking opportunities. They also have access to student success coaches, and certain fees and things like that are waived. So there's really a lot of opportunities that come through EOF, not just financial, but also just different support services for students entering college. Students apply by filing the FAFSA or the New Jersey Alternative Application each year. To qualify for EOF, students have to demonstrate an educationally and economically disadvantaged background and meet specific financial criteria, which I will show on the next slide. It's also for New Jersey residents. You have to be a New Jersey resident for 12 consecutive months prior to receiving the award. And you have to apply and be accepted to a participating New Jersey college or university, such as Stockton. There's also specific academic criteria, and you have to be full-time as well to receive EOF. So again, there's no, when you apply to Stockton, you would apply to be an EOF student, but it would just be filing the FAFSA would really determine your financial eligibility. Okay, for a student to be considered for EOF, gross income and assets must fall within this chart, this criteria. So for example, with a household size of 3, gross income cannot exceed $49,720 and assets cannot exceed $9,944, and so on and so forth, as you see with this chart. If anybody wants to screenshot this, if they think they might be eligible, feel free. And you can always learn more at stockton.edu/EOF. Okay, so now that I talked about some sources and types of financial aid, went into some specific programs, I want to go over how to apply. Like I said, I know some of you have already been through, but I know that some people haven't. So I do want to cover this stuff as well. So U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens will file the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA, each year to determine their eligibility for federal, state, and some institutional aid programs. The FAFSA is typically available on October 1st. It was not for this 24-25 FAFSA because of all the changes that occurred. So it is open now, the 24-25 FAFSA. So you can file that at FAFSA.gov if you are planning to attend school within the 2024-2025 academic year, which would be fall 24 and spring 25. New Jersey Dreamer students are not eligible for federal student aid, but could be considered for state aid. So New Jersey Dreamers will complete their own application. It's called the New Jersey Alternative Application through HESA, which is the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. It's like the federal student aid of New Jersey, I always say. So they have their own application. You can file that at HESA.org if you do identify as a New Jersey Dreamer. Please also note that HESA also determines state aid eligibility for New Jersey residents who are U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens by the information reported on the FAFSA. So everybody will deal with HESA if you're a New Jersey resident. All right, so now let's talk about FAFSA simplification really quick. The U.S. Department of Education is currently still in the process of implementing a major overhaul of the processes and systems used to offer federal student aid starting with the 24-25 aid year. So what's that mean? They're changing everything about the FAFSA pretty much. It is long overdue. It's something that was definitely needed. The FAFSA was very outdated. So the goal of this, of course, is to expand eligibility for federal student aid and to create a more streamlined application process and a better user experience for the FAFSA form, which I can say now that it's available if you haven't filled it out. For the most part, it has created a better user experience. There are some glitches and things going on that haven't necessarily done that. But I think that once those things are all ironed out, the overall FAFSA application has become a little more simpler, especially the look and feel to it. There's not as much information that needs to be manually inputted, which is always nice when you're dealing with financials. So what does this mean for us? The FAFSA has changed. So if you've ever filled out a FAFSA, any parents or guardians have ever filled out a FAFSA with another student, an older student or something like that, it's definitely a lot different, okay? Some of the changes that we can expect to see or that we have seen, fewer questions used to determine a student's aid eligibility. So previously there were around 108 questions that they used to determine aid eligibility. Now we're at approximately 40. The number of students in the household in college will no longer be used in the formula to determine aid eligibility. Household size is actually going to be pulled from the parent's tax return. It can be manually updated if that number has changed since the parents filed, but that is where that's pulled. Majority of the information now in the FAFSA is pulled from the tax return. It's considered verified that way, and it's just a little bit easier to process aid that way. Okay, the student aid index has replaced the EFC or the expected family contribution. This is the change I'm very glad to see. The expected family contribution was an indexing number used to determine aid eligibility, but it was not what your family was expected to contribute towards college. So I'm very happy they renamed this to the student aid index or SAI. It's pretty much the same idea. The formula has changed. But the same idea that it is an indexing number used to determine aid eligibility. So they plug all of your financial information into this big formula, and that's how they determine your aid eligibility. In general, the lower the SAI, the greater eligibility you could have for need-based aid. Your SAI can be as low as negative 1,500. Any SAI in the negatives shows greater financial need. Okay, the Department of Education now refers to anyone who is required to provide information on the FAFSA as a contributor. So students are contributors, parents, if the student is dependent, are contributors, student's spouse, if they have one, they are a contributor. The contributor only contributes information into the FAFSA and is not required to financially contribute to the student's education. This is very important. Some parents do refuse to provide information on the FAFSA. Now what they've done, this process has made it a little simpler in those cases where the student can actually not see the parent's financial information, the parent section, and the parent cannot see the student section either. So it's made it a little bit more private. And it's also, again, so if a parent is refusing, the student could say, well, I'm not going to see any of your information, and also that they're not expected to financially contribute at all. Okay, some additional changes really quickly. The direct data exchange is replacing the IRS data retrieval tool. So the DDX will import tax information into the FAFSA directly from the IRS after the contributor's consent to the data exchange. Super important. All contributors, regardless of whether you file a tax return, have to contribute to use the direct data exchange. You might be asking, well, why if I didn't file a tax return? So the IRS will then basically send a message to federal student aid to say, we have no record of a tax return filed for this person. And that is verifying that you didn't file a tax return. And that's something that we typically would have to do. So it's actually making that process a little simpler as well. But everybody needs to consent to that. No consent equals no aid. So if somebody doesn't consent, that's required to be a contributor on the FAFSA, then the student will not be eligible for federal aid. And subsequently, they will not be eligible for state aid or certain need-based institutional aid programs because we need a valid FAFSA on file for the student to be considered for those. Okay, like I mentioned a few seconds ago, students and parents will complete their sections of the FAFSA separately. Dependent students will add their custodial parents as contributors to the FAFSA. Independent students will add their spouse if they're married. By entering their name, date of birth, social, and email into the application. Once the student signs and submits their section of the application, contributors will receive an email asking them to log into the FAFSA using their own FSA ID. New users will have to create one. If parents are unmarried and living together, or they're married, living together, and filed their tax returns separately, or they're unmarried, then both parents will need to complete this process. Okay, only one parent needs to complete the process if the parents are married and filed a joint tax return. All contributors must complete their sections of the application for a student's FAFSA to be submitted. Okay, I know that was a lot of different information, a lot of new things. So what is your first step in applying for financial aid? That's creating an FSA ID. If you have not done that already, you can go to studentaid.gov and select create account. Currently, parents without social security numbers are now able to create an FSA ID. Previously, they were not. We have seen some technical glitches and issues with parents being able to verify their identity through this process. So we are encouraging students, if this is your case, if this has happened, then you should try to get in contact with federal student aid, of course, so that we can, have them verify your parent's identity. And then you can go ahead and have them fill out the application. I understand that some students have become a little frustrated because of the influx of calls that federal student aid is getting. They're obviously very busy, so they're not able to answer as many calls, I guess, in a day as we would like them to. So it's important to just keep trying to get through to them if you can't. There is an email provided after parents whose identities are not able to be verified. There is a process to be able to send federal student aid an email. They'll assign you a case number and then go through that process. But if you are having any difficulties at all, it's very important to try to get in contact with them. Earlier in the morning is best to call. All right, the next step would be, of course, filing the FAFSA. This is for 24-25. Please note that the U.S. Department of Education has begun sending FAFSA data to schools. So that was very delayed. The FAFSA was delayed until January, or the end of December. And then at the end of January, schools were expected to begin receiving FAFSA data. That was delayed again until later in March. So we have begun receiving FAFSA data, but just like the federal government made all these changes, and they did communicate some things to us, but we need to test our systems as well. So we are in the process of doing that. And we hope to be able to load all FAFSAs into the system very soon. But please expect delays, of course, in your financial aid offers and requirements from us and other schools as well. The ability to make FAFSA corrections is expected in mid-April. So right now, if you have to log back into your FAFSA and make any type of correction, you cannot do that. But that is expected mid-April. We're hoping for next week. That's what the department has said. So we will see. And I'm hopeful that once you make a correction, it will be processed and the whole process will go smoothly. But of course, this is new territory for everybody. So fingers crossed that it goes that way. The most important thing right now is to please monitor your emails. If you have submitted a FAFSA and it says that it's been processed by federal student aid, Please know that there's nothing more you really have to do at this moment. Like I said, once corrections become available, if you do have to make a correction, please log in and do that. And then they will process that and send that to the school. Once we are finished testing and loading all of your FAFSA data into the system, you will receive an email to say that we have received your FAFSA, and then we will communicate with you through email next steps. We do hope to begin, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but we do hope to begin offering aid to students in May, so beginning in May. And then, of course, from there on, we'll continue. Okay, if you are filing the FAFSA for this year, you haven't done it yet, you're going to use 2022 income information. Like I said, a lot of this information is transferred from the IRS, but it's good to have some of this on hand just in case they ask you any questions that you have to put in manually. Okay, so 2022 income information, you'll need records of child support received, current balances of cash, savings, and checking accounts, and then the net worth of any investments, businesses, and farms. That's all as of the day the FAFSA is filed. That's really what they want from that. Anybody that is looking to attend in fall of 2025, spring of 2026, you would use 2023 income information on that FAFSA. We don't know yet if that is going to be delayed as well. I just listened to a webinar today that there's a potential it could be, but we will see. So stay tuned for that. But usually it's October 1st, it'll come out. So just keep an eye out for more information. Okay, which parents, just going to go over a few common questions we get. Which parents are reported on the FAFSA? So of course, all situations are different. If parents are married or unmarried and living together, then both biological or adoptive parents are reported on the FAFSA in these cases. Okay, a student's biological or adoptive parents, if they're married and reside in the same household, then of course, they both are reported on the FAFSA. If they're unmarried, but they live together, then both parents are also reported on the FAFSA. That's important. Okay, if parents are divorced or separated, then the custodial parent is the parent who's reported. You'd be asking, what's the custodial parent? That is the parent who provides more than 50% of the student's financial support. If both parents provide equal, then the parent with the greater income or assets is reported on the FAFSA. So if parents are divorced and the custodial parent is remarried, then both the custodial parent and the step parent's information is reported on the FAFSA. The other biological parent's information would not be reported. If parents are divorced and the custodial parent is not remarried, then it's only that custodial parent, and that's the parent who provides 50% of the, more than 50%, excuse me, of the student's financial support. That other parent would not have to contribute to the FAFSA. Okay, so typically when a student would select that they have an unusual circumstance, meaning that they're unable to provide parent information for it could be a number of different reasons. They would have their FAFSA rejected, and then we would have to reach out to the student and go through a dependency status review to see if they really did meet the criteria to become an independent student. There are certain questions on the FAFSA that are asked to determine if a student is independent. If a student doesn't meet any of those criteria, but say they have no contact with their parents, or there was an unsafe or unstable home or something like that, and they had to leave the home. Things like that could potentially make the student independent, but we have to go through this dependency review process. Okay, new this year, the student's FAFSA will still come back with a code that shows us that they are provisionally independent. And what we will do is we will reach out to the student with a provisional aid offer. So they'll get an estimated aid offer. That's new. We never used to do that. But they'll get an estimated aid offer based on them being independent. And then they have to go through that same process, though, to end up receiving any of that aid to determine if they should be considered independent or not. If they should, then that aid offer would stand. And if not, then they would have to go back into the FAFSA and report parent information. Okay, after completing the FAFSA, determining state aid eligibility. So like I said, everybody's going to hear from HESA if you're a New Jersey resident. So after filing the FAFSA, the state of New Jersey receives a copy of your application. They're kind of in the same boat we are right now. They are still testing their system and going through everything. I watched another meeting or webinar today. They are in the process of updating everything, and they hope to also be loading FAFSA data very soon. Okay, but New Jersey residents who attend a New Jersey college or university are considered for state financial aid programs, including the Garden State Guarantee I talked about earlier and the state tuition aid grant. EOF is also a state aid program. Please note, like I said, New Jersey Dreamers are going to file the New Jersey Alternative application at HISA.org, and then they'll log into their NJFAMS portal, and they'll have potentially requirements, or it will tell them what aid they're eligible for. Everybody will have an NJFAMS portal who's a New Jersey resident. You'll be able to log into there and it will tell you what age you're eligible for and if you need to submit any additional documentation. Something super important to note about financial aid is that when you file your FAFSA or your New Jersey Alternative application, that's not necessarily the end of the road. You may end up having been selected for what we call verification. That means that we have to verify elements of your FAFSA. So we might have to collect additional documents and things. The school does that on behalf of the federal government. The state of New Jersey or HISA does that for themselves. So you may have to submit things to us or to HISA. So it's important that you create that account and make sure that you're monitoring that, okay? Another please note, so HISA, like I said, has also experienced delays as a result of the delays to the FAFSA. Information should begin appearing in NJFAMS in late April, and document requests should be coming in May. So please keep that in mind. Within the next few weeks to months, you will be receiving correspondence from us and from HISA. So please keep monitoring your emails. Okay, I know that was a lot about applying and all of that. So now we're done with applying. We're going to talk about determining your costs. Okay, a name that I really wish the federal government would change is the cost of attendance. The cost of attendance includes direct costs as well as indirect costs. Okay. When we hear the cost of attendance, though, we think, oh, what does the school cost to go to? What would the bill be? So what I like to break it down in is direct costs are like your bill. So those are things like tuition and fees, housing and meals, anything that the school is actually going to charge you for. Those are your direct costs. Your indirect costs include things like books and supplies, transportation, and other miscellaneous personal expenses. So these are things that the school is not actually going to bill you for, but they're costs that we want you to consider that, the student may incur as a result of attending school. You may have to purchase books for classes. If you're a commuter, you may need to pay for gas and things like that, transportation to get to campus, other things like that. So we just want you to understand that, and that's why the federal government has come up with this formula. So please understand that when you see the cost of attendance, it might seem a lot higher than what you're thinking the school may cost. That's because it includes both of these components. If you really want to know what the school costs, just what your bill might be, then you want to look at those direct costs. And in your financial aid offer, we will break them down, but we do include the total cost of attendance as well. And sometimes I know that that can scare some people, so I just want to make sure that you understand the difference. Your next steps are going to be viewing and accepting your financial aid offer when you receive that, and determining your costs. Okay. So like I said earlier, we hope to begin sending aid offers beginning in May, like I said. So if you don't get one in May, that doesn't mean that you're not getting one. We're just, like, the federal government has gone through their processes of changing everything. We have to do the same thing. So we are going to begin that once we're finished all of our testing and everything. So when we do, you will receive an email that lets you know that your financial aid offer is available, and that will have a link in there that you can click on to view that offer. All right, this is a sneak peek of pretty much what the aid offer is going to look like. Some terminology has changed. So some little details in here that we've already updated and everything, but those things have changed. So what is your aid offer going to show? Like I said, it's going to show those direct costs that are at the top. So tuition, fees, housing, and food. So your total direct costs will be listed there. Any free money that you could receive will be listed under need-based financial aid, as well as any scholarships would be listed there as well. I do want to note that we are going to send aid offers as soon as we possibly can, and we want to have accurate information on there. So if HISA is not ready and they have not sent us what students are eligible for on the state side, we are still going to go forward with sending aid offers to students. So your initial financial aid offer may not include state aid. There will be a disclaimer in the aid offer, but I do want to point that out. We don't want to hold federal and institutional aid back because we're waiting on the state. So it may not include that. If you are eligible for state aid, we will send you a revised financial aid offer that will show the state aid on there. And then you'll be able to view your entire financial aid package that way. Another way to look for state aid eligibility once it's available is to log on to your NJFAMS portal, njfams.hisa.org, and then that will tell you what you're eligible for, if anything. But if it's on there, then we're probably going to send it in your aid offer. So please just note, if you don't see state aid, that doesn't mean that you're not eligible for it. Okay, next we're going to go over your indirect expenses. So what other things should you budget for? And then we add those direct costs with your indirect expenses. That's how we get your total estimated cost of attendance, which, like I said, you know, if you're looking at that 28,782 number, right, you're thinking, okay, that's how much it cost to attend. And then you add that other over 6,000 number, you're saying, oh my goodness, that's so much more. Like I said, total direct costs would be what your bill, an estimate of what your bill could be. Okay. Then we'll subtract that free money, and then you're left with your total net costs. We really try to break it down to make it easy to understand. But if you have any questions when you're reviewing your aid offer or anything like that, we of course are here to help. The next thing that we're going to go over is how can you pay these expenses. So we subtract all of your free money because of course it's free money. You don't have to pay it back or anything. Other ways to pay expenses are those self-help aid options. So there's the federal direct loan program. So any loans that you're eligible for through filing the FAFSA, we will list there. If you're eligible for federal work study, that will be listed there as well. And those you actually have to take action on and accept, and then do loan counseling and sign a loan agreement, complete your federal work study contract, things like that. So those are things you actually have to take additional action on. Okay, now you've viewed your aid offer, determined your costs. Now it's time to brainstorm ways to fill the gap. Okay, cost of attendance versus aid. This is just a good way for me to get across really exactly what we're talking about. So your cost of attendance, like I said, your direct costs plus your indirect costs. There's your financial aid. So there's the gap that you need to fill, right? So let's talk about some ways we can fill that gap. We do list these in your financial aid offer. The first one that I'm going to talk about is external scholarship opportunities. I love talking about scholarships because they are everywhere, and I see time and time again that students are not applying for them. Like I think that they should be. I know that it can be a tedious process, but you can really get a lot of benefits and of course, you know, funding to help cover the cost of your education. Okay, so some of the places we can find scholarships, local organizations, for example, your local Rotary Club. The student on the left applied for a scholarship with his local Rotary Club and received a laptop. So that helped cover that indirect expense for him. Scholarship search sites. So for example, FastWeb is a good one. You can search for different scholarships on pretty much everything, any of your interests or you know, things that you like, you can search on there. Your high school guidance counselors are a great resource. Your high school could offer some scholarships, but a lot of community partners will go to your high schools as well. So that is something definitely super important to ask your guidance counselors about if there's anything local that you can apply for. Yours or your parents' employers. So the student on the right here in the picture worked for Chick-fil-A, and she applied for one of their scholarships and she received $20,000 from them. Of course, not everybody's necessarily going to be so generous, but that's just an example that, you know, Chick-fil-A offers a scholarship. I think Taco Bell is another one. Several of them offer different scholarships or tuition reimbursement if you're working there. So definitely important to check up on that, ask. It never hurts to ask. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Stockton scholarships after you apply. Okay, the next topic I want to go over is loans. I know it's not everybody's favorite topic. I actually love talking about loans. This is what my master's capstone was on, responsible borrowing and financial literacy. So I love talking about loans. Many students have to take out loans to help cover the cost of their education. That's a fact. Not everybody's going to be eligible for that free money, or at least enough of it to cover all costs, and not everybody can pay out of pocket. So most students have to borrow. Okay, there's 3 different types of options for you. So you have your federal direct loans, which are offered through filing the FAFSA. These usually come at a lower interest rate than most private loans will. So we usually encourage students to take these loans before looking into private loans. Of course, if you can find a loan with a lower interest rate, then you can certainly go for that, but they're typically come at a lower rate than private loans. They're usually not enough to cover your entire gap though, so you will have to find other ways to help cover that gap. Additional loan options include private loans, so these would be with banks, credit unions, anybody that will lend to you. At Stockton, we don't have a preferred lender list. We have a historic lender list. So anybody that's borrowed a loan in the past 3 years, we list that lender on our website. So it's Stockton student lenders who have had their loan products used by Stockton students in the last 3 years. So you can certainly take a look at that, but you don't have to go with anyone on that list. You can go with whoever you'd like. But that's a good list to help kind of compare interest rates, the different terms and conditions, and see who might fit you best. And then if any parent wants to borrow on behalf of their student, there's something called the Parent Direct Plus loan, which would allow the parent to do just that, to borrow a loan on behalf of their student. It is the parent's loan, so the student has no responsibility to pay it back. Occasionally, this loan does have a lower rate than some private loans, and if parents are willing, it is a good option as well, if borrowing is your option. I will always say if you don't have to borrow, don't do it. But it's important not to be afraid of doing it if you have to. It's just important to be informed and responsible. Okay, understanding interest rates and repayment. Interest rates are, of course, probably over the heads of a lot of students, a lot of younger students, right? And that's not to knock anybody or anything. I just know from experience, right? So you have to think of interest. This is for the students. You have to think of interest as what you're being charged to borrow a loan. So you're borrowing a certain amount, right? But then you're being charged to borrow that amount. And the interest will compound after years, right? So a small loan turns into a very big loan when you go to repay it. So just super important to think about interest rates and repayment. And not over borrowing. So only really borrow what you need. Anything that you can put towards your education now will save you money in the long run. Okay, another good option, payment plans. So saving and making payments. Of course, this is the ideal, right? We all want to be able to have the money to just pay out of pocket. Any little bit that you can save and put towards your education now, like I said, will save you money later. So working a part-time job could help cover some expenses. It's also important, I want you all to know, Stockton bills per semester, and we offer payment plans up to 5 payments each semester. So take advantage of that to make payments toward your bill. You can also use any of the options, any and all of the options that I mentioned. So say you have a bill, and I'm just going to do an even number of $5,000 per semester, right? So if you have a $5,000 bill in the fall, and you can only afford to pay $500 a month. So what you'll do is you will take a loan for $2,500 if that's the only other option you have, and then make a payment plan for the rest, and you'll pay $500 a month for 5 months, and then you'll have saved yourself a lot of money in interest on that loan that you borrowed. Okay, last 2 things, complete all outstanding requirements and follow us on social media. Okay. Outstanding requirements, like I said, please monitor your emails. We will be sending you emails if you have requirements. We send emails weekly to students to let them know that they have outstanding requirements. In order to view those requirements, you will go to the Stockton Go portal, to the financial aid tab, and then you will click on financial aid requirements. You'll put in the aid year, which depending on when you're entering Stockton, you'll put in that year. And then it will list any requirements that you have to complete on there. And it's important to note that your financial aid offer, whatever offer you get, is contingent upon you completing all of those requirements. Okay, like I said, there's a process called verification you could have to complete. If you accept loans, you have to do entrance counseling and a promissory note. So there's a plethora of requirements that you could have. Anytime financial aid is emailing you, it's something important. It's something that you need to do. Your aid could be affected by that. So please make sure that you're always reading anything that comes from our office. Okay. We're not just going to, we love to see how students are doing and everything, but we're not emailing you just to let you know something fun's going on or something like that. We really need you to do something, and it could impact your aid or your ability to get aid. So just super important to note. Okay. This is your NJFAMS account. This is the login page. So just so you see what that looks like. Okay. And then following us on social media. Again, it's not for us, it's not about how many likes or follows we get or anything like that. We really just want to get our information out to students and families. We put out a lot of good information, all the updates that we receive, going forward from the Department of Ed and everything. We put out a lot of good information that students and families need to know. So if you'd like, you can follow us at Stockton FinAid on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter, for some good tips and tricks and different information. We also tweet out scholarship opportunities. We do vet those scholarship opportunities, so we make sure that they're legitimate. So that's a good resource as well for you. Okay, and then finally, you can contact us at any time. Of course, we're always here to help. One way to do that is through the Go Stockton portal, but also our website. If you just go to stockton.edu/contact-FinAid, you can either email us, schedule a phone appointment. You can always stop into the office or give us a call, and we would be glad to assist you with whatever questions you have, whatever process. I had a student today who is having a hard time with that Social Security number verification for her parents, and it was through email, and I just told her, listen, why don't you just come in and we'll look at it and do everything we can to help you navigate through the process. So anything we can do to help our students, we absolutely will. Okay, I just wanted to give some resources really quickly. So for federal student aid, state aid, and then Stockton financial aid as well. So I just have websites and phone numbers here. That's that website again to email or schedule a phone appointment with us. So if you'd like to take a picture of that or screenshot, feel free to do that. And then second to last slide. If you haven't and you're considering, please apply. We would love to see you become an Osprey. So you can do that at stockton.edu/apply. And then for anybody that's been admitted for the fall 2024 semester, we have Experience Stockton Day coming up on Saturday, April 20th. Please come out. Again, this is for admitted students, but we do have additional opportunities to come visit us at stockton.edu/visit for anybody who would like a tour or to come visit campus. And that's pretty much the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight with us. I am going to go ahead now and answer some of the Q&A questions.
Hello, everyone. Someone asked whether or not I am a bot. I am not a bot. I am a real person, and I am typing away, trying to answer all of your questions as quickly as I can. All right, let's get started with some questions. We will ask them in the order in which we have received them. So bear with us. If you have asked just recently, we will get to you as soon as we can. Okay, Marielena, first question. Will FAFSA for 25-26 school year be up in October 24?
That is certainly the hope. There was a session I watched today, a webinar, where it was suggested that some of our associations, so our National Financial Aid Association and things, are not confident that that will happen. Some of the people in Washington are not confident that that will happen. I don't have a specific answer. I really hope that it is, but we will have to wait and see. So please continue to stay up to date on with our website, monitor your emails, and we will be sure to let you know.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. Can students use any leftover financial aid or scholarships toward dorming?
So that depends. Short answer is yes. If you have something like the Stockton Promise or the Garden State Guarantee, and that doesn't necessarily allow that just because those are last dollar programs. So for example, if your tuition and fees, you have a Pell Grant, a TAG grant, and they go towards your tuition and fees, and then there's still a gap in that, then the Stockton Promise would cover the gap. It wouldn't go over into housing and food. But if you have enough, say, Pell and TAG and other grants and scholarships that exceed the cost of your tuition and fees, then that could go over into housing and meals as well. So it's possible for sure.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. My information is pending on the FAFSA website and requires a signature, but I am unable to provide the signature because the website is locked down. When will the website be active again?
So we expect that the Department of Education will enable the process to make FAFSA corrections within the next week or so. They just issued some guidance last night that said that they're expecting to do that next week. So fingers crossed that they don't run into any issues and that they do open up that capability. So just keep checking back, but I would say within the next week or two, we should see that capability open. So you'll be able to log in and provide that signature.
Excellent. I've received this question multiple times. If a family has already submitted their new FAFSA, but they have neglected to add Stockton to it, how can they add the university?
Okay, that's actually a super simple correction. You just log back into the FAFSA. So again, this is not available yet. Within the next week or two, we hope corrections will become available. But what you'll do is you will log back into the FAFSA, you'll navigate, and this is the student I'm speaking of. The student will navigate to the school selection section and add Stockton with either our school code or just by name, and then resubmit the application.
And when you mean those corrections will become available soon, do you have an approximate timeline?
Hopefully next week. That's what we were told. So they said in mid-April. So I'm hoping next week.
Awesome. Thank you. The HESA website school date of 24-25 is not available. When will they be available?
School date. I'm not quite sure what they would be referring to. Maybe when you log into FAMS, you can't see the 24-25 aid year. If that is the case, that should be available towards the end of this month, early May. That's the latest we heard from HESA staff today. So they are working on it, and they hope to have that live within the next few weeks to a month.
Okay, Michael McGuire, if that answers your question, you don't have to do anything. If that didn't answer your question, please pop another question into the Q&A. All right, next question. I was told to fill out the Parent Plus loan by entrance counselor, but then when I visited, I was told I shouldn't have applied yet. Now what?
So for any type of loan that you're applying for, whether it's a private loan or a Parent Plus loan, you want to wait typically. So if you're applying for it for the 24-25 academic year, you'd want to wait until the end of May, early June to actually apply for that loan because they're credit-based loans. So the credit checks will expire, and if they expire before we actually go to certify the loan, which isn't until like a month or so before the semester starts, a month or two, then we can't certify it and you have to go through the process again. So for something like that, if you're applying for the fall and spring of the following year, usually you want to wait until the end of May, early June. If by chance, which I don't recommend, I always recommend applying for an entire year loan at once. But if by chance you are coming in for the spring semester, say, then I would say applying in November would be a good time later in November for the spring semester. So for your specific case, I would wait until the end of May, early June to apply. You will have to apply again though.
Excellent, thank you. What is general turnaround time on application for Parent Plus loans? Is money from loan sent directly to Stockton?
So Parent Plus loan turnaround's pretty quick. Typically depends on the time of year we're talking about, of course. So if you're applying, like I said, end of May, early June, it's usually within a few business days, 1 to 2. If you're applying kind of in the deeper part of the summer where we're processing a lot of loans, we're still looking at them every day, but when there's a ton, of course, it might be more like 3 to 4 business days. But pretty quickly, as long as you have all your requirements in with the federal government, once they send us that information, we'll process them pretty much right away. The money from any type of loan, any type of education loan is always sent directly to the school. So what happens is you apply with that lender, whoever it is, and then they reach out to us. Once you're approved and everything, they reach out to us. We certify that the student is enrolled here, enrolled in courses, and then we kind of work from there. They'll send us the funding when, we schedule what's called disbursement. Usually happens a little bit later in the fall and a little bit later in the spring for those semesters. But they send us the money directly, and then we just work with them. You don't really have to do anything in between. You do have to apply for a new loan every year, though. That's something important to note.
Excellent. Staying in the vein of loans, It was said that subsidized and unsubsidized loans might not be enough to cover the cost of attendance. Where do students get loans for the difference without a cosigner?
Without a cosigner. Okay, so there are certain lenders out there that will lend to students without a cosigner, no cosigner loans. We do have that historic list on our website, and there are some lenders on that list that are those no cosigner loans. You can also just do a Google search of no cosigner loans, and there are some lenders out there. Of course, you do want to review the terms and everything. The interest is sometimes a little higher on those loans, just because, most students don't have established credit. So without a cosigner, they're going to charge a little bit of a higher interest rate. But it's definitely possible to get a cosigner. So either using our historic lender list or just searching for no cosigner loans, that should be a good starting point. And if you have any questions when you're going through that process, please reach out.
I will add the education loans link into the chat when Elena is answering the next question, so you can just grab it from there. Next question, is NJ FAMS separate from HESA?
No, so HESA is the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. They're, like I said, the federal student aid of the state, kind of. So they're the agency that reviews all of your financial aid data and then determines what you're eligible for. The system that you log into is called NJ FAMS. So it's the state HESA's system. So I guess you would think of it as when federal student aid requires you to fill out the FAFSA, you log into the FAFSA system. When HESA requires you to complete information and documents and things like that, you log into their NJ FAMS system.
Thanks. Is Stockton Promise and GSG available to part-time students?
They are not. You do have to be full-time. That's at least 12 credits per semester.
Okay. Should parents attend Acceptance Students Day?
Absolutely. Natalia, I think you can also answer this, but yes, the family is welcome.
Yeah, so I'll answer for myself. I do have a daughter who is attending an institution of higher education. This is her first full year, and I will have another one going into university in another year. And although I work in higher education, I attend every single Acceptance Students Days because you never know how each institution approaches the Acceptance Students Day. That's number one. And number two, education is a family affair, whether we like it or not. Every single thing that is talked about in the open house, in the Acceptance Students Day, in orientation, in preparation for enrollment, all of that affects the entire family, especially if the family is assisting their student to pay for their education. And especially if this is your first child that is attending a university, or if it is, someone who is maybe a little bit nervous, or someone who just wants a support system and the support network with them, or if you just want to know what is happening. So once your kid is completely stressed out in their first semester of study, you can guide them and calm them down and tell them this is not the end of the world, and remind them, do you remember when we were at this date at this event and they said this? So definitely attend, because the amount of information you will receive is overwhelming.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. You're welcome. Can I apply to an EOF program without family support?
Without family support. I'm taking this in terms of you're asking if you could be considered an independent student. That would be determined through a dependency status review. So we'd have to go through that process to determine whether you're independent, and then kind of go from there. But if you're not considered independent, then you would have to apply based off of parent and family information.
Okay, this is a question that has been asked by someone else, but I will ask it again just so everyone is aware, because I'm sure everyone has this question. Should we wait until we receive our financial aid package from you to pay the registration fee? Our daughter has been accepted and has received the presidential scholarship. We are worried that if we wait, her housing opportunities will be limited.
So you don't have to wait. No, you can definitely submit your deposit now and we will get you a financial aid offer. Um, yeah, I mean, if you're concerned about the housing, getting her first choice and everything, then I would recommend definitely sending in that deposit, but you don't have to wait now.
So I will add what I added to the previously asked question. It really depends on what is most important to you and your family, right? You have to ask yourself, what is the most prevalent factor in our family's decision of which university or college we will choose? If it is finances, you are likely going to be receiving very similar federal and state grants, no matter which institution you will be attending. And I will let Maria Elena elaborate on that. So you kind of have to ask yourself which of the other factors outside of financial aid that are the most important to us. And that's number one. And number two, what is the difference between what we are projecting to be receiving versus the cost of attendance? And I understand it's difficult to project that, but you do have a very responsive Office of Financial Aid. You can schedule appointments with them one-on-one or stop by the office or give them a call. There's many, many, many of them. It's not just Maria Elena. There's lots and lots of people in that office, and they are always very busy. But do give them a call. Let them know what your estimated family income is, or if you have already received your taxes, let them know what they are, and then they can maybe log into their systems and let you know what you can be expecting roughly, right, to give you a little bit of an idea, and then you can go from there estimating how much you will have to contribute out of pocket after aid. Marilena?
Yeah, so we're not going to be able to estimate anything just yet because we don't have all the data that we need. We can certainly go over any questions that you might have regarding costs or anything right now. And then once we do get that information, we'll get you your financial aid offers, and then we can go over everything that you're eligible for. But like Natalia said, it really is. If Stockton, that your student wants to attend Stockton, then you don't have to wait. You can submit the deposit now. We will get you an aid offer, but it just depends on your family situation.
Great. Next question. Do I need to apply to HESA even after FAFSA?
So it's not a separate application to apply for state aid. The state will receive your FAFSA. You may have to submit additional documents to them so that they can verify the information on the FAFSA and determine your state aid eligibility, but it's not a separate application.
Okay. Once we get financial aid decision in email from Stockton, can we contact financial aid office at Stockton to explore possible federal loan options to cover gap?
Yes, so you can, for sure, you can contact us to talk about whatever loan options you're thinking or any other ways to cover that gap. Any federal loans are actually going to be presented in the financial aid offer. And then there will be instructions on there on how to accept those loans for the student. Would be the student's loans. They're considered financial aid. There's no cosigner required. There's no credit check or anything like that. For any other type of loan on top of those, we have that historic lender list we can go over with you. We can't recommend anyone on there, but we can certainly show you how to use the tool. And then the Parent Direct Plus loan as well. We can certainly go over that as well with you.
Great. Next question. I have been accepted, but I am unable to come to Stockton the 20th. Oh, I guess on the acceptance students day. Is there another day I can come to visit? So I'll answer that question since I work in admissions office. The university offers either virtual tours, right? If you're out of state or if you're traveling pretty far and you just don't feel like making the trek down all the way down or over to southern New Jersey, then you can go to the Office of Admissions website and navigate to the Visit Us tab. I will populate it into the chat, and you can view all of the very helpful virtual tours that we offer. If you are able to visit us in person and you would like to, we offer tours from Monday to Saturday, and they go out every 2 hours. And on Saturdays, we offer 3 different tours. one at 10, one at 12, and one at 2 o'clock. And of course, remember that you can visit not only the Galloway campus, which is our mother campus, you can also visit our second campus in Atlantic City, and we encourage you to do that. Okay, next question. Does interest on loans start immediately or not until the student graduates?
The interest on most loans does accrue immediately. The subsidized loan, if the student is offered that, it is need-based. So not every student will receive a subsidized loan. But if the student is eligible for that, that loan will not start to accrue interest until the student graduates. With any other type of private loan, the Parent Plus loan, I won't say any, but majority, any that I've seen, will start to accrue interest right away. That includes the unsubsidized loan from the federal government as well.
Okay, next question. How can students apply for work study?
So for work study, what happens is it's a very limited fund that we receive from the federal government. And it's offered to returning students first who had work study previously. And then anybody that has, it kind of gets into the formula of financial aid a little bit, who has financial need. It's not that you need the funding, right? Because of course we all need some of that. Most people don't have their total gap completely covered, right? But financial need is taking your cost of attendance and subtracting your SAI, and that determines if there's need left. With that helps us determine who's eligible for work study. So there's not a specific application or anything for work study. We kind of use that to determine who's eligible. But like I said, the federal government gives us a pot of money that's very small, and we have to disperse it among students. So not everybody that's eligible will receive it, but you'd be considered for it.
And then staying in the vein of work study, what work opportunities are available through work study?
So several offices on campus will hire work study students for many different types of jobs on campus. A lot of different office jobs, but there are other opportunities as well. We do also have some off-campus partners where students will work in off-campus offices. But I do just want to mention, because not everybody's going to be eligible for work study or receive the funding, Stockton offices do also hire students who are non-work study. There are certain offices on campus. I know for example, like the bookstore doesn't always hire work study. Our catering company doesn't always hire work study. So just because you don't have work study doesn't mean you can't get a job on campus, is my main point. So something to consider as well. We have on our website, if you just go to Stockton's main website and search the word handshake, like shaking somebody's hand, handshake. The student's going to log in with their Go Stockton portal credentials, and then it will list employment opportunities on campus. And it will say whether it's work study or not.
Okay, we're receiving lots and lots of questions. We have to be cognizant of time. We are over time. So I will only be asking questions that pertain to financial aid. If they're not pertaining to financial aid, please reach out directly to the Office of Admissions and we will answer your question via email. So let's stay in the vein of work study. How does work study work? Do students get their paychecks? Or does the money go straight to the bill?
That's a great question. So for work study, students work and they earn a paycheck. So the money will never go directly to your bill. Once you work, you'll get paid biweekly.
Great. Let's see. I know the FAFSA talked about not including other siblings in college, but do they take that into account when looking at the financial aid?
So that question is technically still asked on the FAFSA. I believe the state is going to be using that question to determine some aid eligibility, but that is not factored in federally. So the federal government will not use the number in college anymore to determine aid eligibility.
Okay. Lots more questions about work study. I love it. I was a work study student myself, highly recommended, and I worked in the Office of Financial Aid. Touche. All right. So next question about work study. Can you do work study and have a second job that is not work study?
So at Stockton, you can only have one job because you can only be on the payroll one time. But you can obviously work like an off-campus job or something as well.
Mhm. And then are New Jersey Dreamers eligible for work study?
New Jersey Dreamers are not eligible for work study because it is a federally funded program. But like I mentioned earlier, there are jobs on campus that will hire, or there are employers on campus that will hire non-work study students. So there are opportunities for New Jersey Dreamers to work on campus.
Okay. Another question, do you qualify for work study if you own a business?
It's really going to depend on that financial need I talked about. So if your cost of attendance minus that SAI leaves some financial need in there, then potentially, yes. I don't want to say no, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to it's specific to the student and your finances.
Great. Will the dates for deposits be extended due to delay in FAFSA? I understand these dates were chosen long before the government started the FAFSA updates. All right, so since I work in admissions, I'm going to pick up this question and take the heat off Mary Lana. Just kidding. So Stockton University does not have a hard and fast deadline to submit a deposit. So let's take a break and let a little breath and remove that elephant from our shoulders and our chests. There is no deadline. However, you have to remember that in order for a student to be invited to orientation and be eligible to register for classes, they have to be committed to the university. Otherwise, we would be inviting thousands and thousands of potential students to register for classes. So it's not so much about what the deadline is versus when you feel that you are prepared and comfortable in submitting your deposit. Always remember that the orientations begin in July. For transfer students, they begin at the end of June, and they continue throughout the month of July and August. With every single orientation, about 300 students will arrive to the university, and each one of them will register for 4 to 5 classes, which means by the time it's August, there's not a whole lot left, and you're going to have to deal with what's available versus what you want. So it's really just, you trying to figure out, have you received all the answers to all of your questions? And are you prepared and ready to submit your deposit rather than what is the deadline and will it be extended? I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the same is true for the housing deposit. There is no deadline. The housing deposits are received on a rolling basis, much like the confirmation deposits are received on a rolling basis. But please remember that the Office of Residential Life begins to make placements at the end of June, beginning of July. And you want to have your deposit and your contract sent to the Office of Residential Life in order for you to receive a placement in housing. Next question. If we submit a deposit, then receive a financial aid offer that does not make it possible to attend, is it possible to withdraw and get the deposit refunded? The answer is no. The deposit is non-refundable. Next question. When can my accepted transfer student pick classes? I will not be answering any questions that don't have anything to do with financial aid because we will be here all night. Are there any study abroad programs, and would they be included in scholarships or grants? So basically, can you use your financial aid to pay for your study abroad?
The answer to that is yes, you can, in most cases. So you'll meet with, if you are interested in studying abroad, you'd meet with the Office of Global Engagement, and then they would give you what's called a cost sheet, and you would bring that to the Office of Financial Aid, where we would fill out your estimated financial aid offer and costs, and then send that over to your provider for study abroad. And then that would kind of inform them what age you're eligible for and what you're going to receive. And then, yeah, your aid can pay some of those costs.
Okay. Next question. What are the deposits for academic and housing? Marlena, want to take it?
I will do my best. I believe that the admissions deposit is $250 and the housing deposit is $150. Natalia, correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct. You passed the test. Um, okay, remember that your enrollment confirmation deposit is not a fee. It is a deposit on your first semester's tuition. It is your good faith payment towards your first semester, your commitment to Stockton, and therefore your eligibility to enroll into courses and go through orientation and meet with our faculty and so on and so forth. Okay, how do you submit a housing deposit? You submit it through your Go portal. So for a student who has been admitted, you will receive your admissions letter. That letter will have your credentials to log into your Go portal. And then through the Go portal, you will submit your housing deposit. Next question. Do students only keep their work-study job until they earn the amount that they were eligible for on their FAFSA?
So technically, yes. Once you apply and you are hired with an on-campus or off-campus work-study partner, you can only earn up to a certain amount each semester. So once you've received that amount, or once you've earned that amount, then you're technically not able to keep working until the next semester or the next year. Typically though, our office manages, like we will say, hey, heads up, this person's getting very close to earning, or they're on pace to earn all of their funding within this many weeks, and then they'll have this many weeks where they're not working. We work with the managers, the federal work study managers in each office, to kind of help facilitate that and make sure students are aware that they're earning too much, and we work with them to help with scheduling also, so that they're not scheduling the student too much, I'll say, not necessarily too much, but enough to where they're going to run out of funding in that semester.
Yeah, as someone who worked as a work study student, the best way to do this is to meet with your financial aid advisor, look at your total award amount, and then break it down between the 15 weeks of the academic semester to understand how much you would be earning potentially if you worked a certain number of hours per week. And then remember that, some of those weeks, for example, in the spring semester, we have spring break, which is in March. In December, we don't have a break. So we just go straight through from September to mid-December, and all of that factors into it. You're going to have an advisor in the Office of Financial Aid, and you're also going to have your manager at whatever office you are working, and they would have to certify your documents for your work study funding, and then that person can sit down with you and do that math. So don't stress, you are not going to be alone. Someone will always help you. All right, so I think we are good to go. Several people have asked for the slides. So we will definitely follow up with every single one of you, great folks who have spent an evening with us, and we will provide those slides to you.
Absolutely, and the presentation has been recorded, and we will be sure to put that up as well.
All right, and I do want to thank Maureen as well. Thank you for your kind words. We are very, very happy that we were able to assist you, and thank you.
Yes, thanks everybody. And please just remember, everybody's in the same boat right now. So please try not to worry. Just we'll all be patient and wait for financial aid offers to arrive, and we'll work with you. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to Natalia. And have a great night.
Have a great night.